So today we're going to dive into area of parallelograms. And I want to take a minute to talk about where the formula comes from so that you understand why it works, and hopefully that will help you remember it. So let's look at a rectangle. This post-it note is a rectangle. Of course, we have our two parallel sides here, and we have our other set of parallel sides here. The other thing about a rectangle is that it has 4 right angles, square corners. So we have that. This is a rectangle. Hopefully you know the formula is area equals length times width. We show that as A equals LW. Leave out the multiplication sign now, especially if you use the X. So A equals LW. Well, the formula for area of a parallelogram is very similar. It's area equals base times height. It's kind of the same thing. So let's look at why that works. So I have for you here a parallelogram. We have opposite sides are parallel. We have the other sides are parallel. And don't worry, I dropped something, hold on. Got it, need it for the next thing. We don't worry about the angles here. We're just worried about the parallel sides across from each other being the same length. Now, this would be the base, and this would be the height. Base and height are always going to be perpendicular to each other or have a right angle. If we go back to our rectangle, this could be considered the base, and this could be considered the height. Normally we call it length and width. But if you think about these two sides, they are perpendicular to each other. So this is actually a form of a parallelogram, and you can use the same formula for that. Now, let's go back and show you another reason. So I have this triangle that I just dropped on the floor that fits right there. Do you agree that that fits? You could hide right on top of that little corner there. If I was to chop this part off, that I already kind of have done here, and slide it over to the other side, that fits right in that space, right? You can see it lines up on the black line here, and then it comes down to make a nice square corner. So imagine that we've chopped this part off, and we filled it in over the other side. What shape did we get? That's a rectangle, which still is the length times width, or as we call it for parallelograms, base times height. Okay? One other thing I want to talk to you about this. If you look, this is done on a grid. We usually give the label in square units. So let's say that these are centimeter squares, 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. We would say that the area is centimeters squared. Well, what you're doing is literally finding how many squares would fit into this shape. Okay, so if I go back to my rectangle, let's say that I have this where it's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 squares across, if you can imagine the grid, and there's 1, 2, 4 squares high. So this rectangle would be covered by 20 squares. 5 times 4 is 20, 20 square units. Well, let's look at this. That's not a complete square. That's not a complete square. But if you think about chopping this off, this little piece here, this little blue wedge, would fit in over here and make a full square. This wedge here would fit this one. And this partial would fit over here. So you get a nice clean line down here, and then this would all fill it in. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be 6 because we're going to slide this over by 1, 2, 3. The area would be 18 square units, square feet, square inches, square miles, whatever it is. Okay, let's look at this with some other problems in the textbook. I'm going to be on page 662. Look at the example down at the bottom. Maybe doesn't want to be very bright. There, that's better. Okay, so we're not given any numbers. We're only given the grid. So you can use that to count. We're going to start from point to point. Right here, this is my starting point. That's like saying 0 on the number line. So we're going to count. I go 1 line, 2, 3, 4, 5. To this point here, the bottom is 6. That's what I'm going to consider my base because that's what it's sitting on. Now, the height is not the slanted side. The height is the distance between the two parallel sides. Sometimes it will be one of the other sides, but often it's not. Okay, so again, we're going to start here at the bottom line. This would be 0. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to this point. The height is 8. So if my formula is area equals base times height, we're going to replace the base with 6. We're going to replace the height with 8, multiply them, and we get 48 square units or units squared. Okay, you can write SQUN for square units, or you can do UN with the exponent 2. That means that if I was to chop this off and slide the triangle over, it would take me 48 squares to cover that parallelogram. And that's what area is measuring, how much it takes to cover the shape. Notice too that our base and height are perpendicular. That's another clue. All right, let's shift to the next page. We'll look up at the top. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this one. We do not have the grid on this, but we are given the numbers. Our formula only needs 2 numbers. It needs base and height, but this has 3. So how do I determine what numbers to use? Well, the base I think is pretty clear. It's the one that it sits on, so we're going to use the 20 for that. The height will always be perpendicular. This is considered a side. This is considered the height. So I'm going to multiply 20 times 11. I get 220. Since this is measured in centimeters, it'll be square centimeters. One more down at the bottom. I'm going to skip down to example 3. Sometimes you know the area and only one of the measurements, but you can use that and the formula to find the missing measurement. So if you look at our parallelogram here, I'm told the answer. I'm told that the area is 45 square inches. And I'm told the base is 9. Well, wait a minute. The base is at the top. That's okay. I know that it would be the same as this one down here because I know about parallelograms and opposite sides being equal. So this bottom one here, the base would be 9. Let's put it into the formula. My formula is area equals base times height. I know A, area is 45, and I know B, base is 9. So what's left? H. Leave it as H for a minute. Now we're going to solve this like the equations that we did a few chapters ago. 9 times what gives me H? Since it's multiplication, I can undo with division. Undo to the other side. What's 45 divided by 9? 5. So the height must be 5 inches. Just plain inches. I don't measure height in squares. I measure height with a straight line and a ruler.